Does Israel have nuclear weapons?
Yes, almost certainly. I mean, they haven't officially claimed it, but almost certainly they do.
Why don't we know for a fact?
Because they don't want to say so, because there's American statutes.
Why do they get a pass? Why do they get a pass about that?
Well, because they're our ally and Iran's our enemy.
See,
it's
so
because we're the good guys.
Okay,
it's Iran's the bad guys.
A very interesting admission. So our friends don't need to be transparent about their nuclear capability, but our enemies.
It's good to be America's friend.
But our enemies do.
Yes.
Wow.
That's exactly how it works.
Well, it's just
because we have the B-2 bomber and they don't.
Hypocrisy, isn't it?
No, it's only hypocrisy if you don't have a normative view of whether the United States is good and Iran is bad.
That was conservative Will Chamberlain, and the answer is yes. Those who defend Israel when Israel is indefensible do sound just as stupid. Cenk, over to you.
Yeah, so I like that we've moved on to the portion of our programming where we admit that we're hypocrites who serve Israel.
I know.
Right, like we're just saying it now. Almost saying like, what are you gonna do about it? We already own all your politicians and all of your mainstream media. Well, there's a lot we can do about it. So, Anna, give them the details here and how I love the way that the person who wasn't in the debate got humiliated. So tell us all about it.
So, as always, Piers Morgan likes to bring people together to debate. In this case, it wasn't a panel of like 56 people. It was Joe Kent, who just recently resigned from the Trump administration over this war against Iran, and Will Chamberlain, who disagrees with what Joe Kent has to say about the pernicious impact, the pernicious relationship of Israel's alliance with the United States. And so let's get started with Piers Morgan, moderating this debate between the two. And Morgan, of course, frequently took Joe Kent's side. Because how could you not? When one side is making hypocritical arguments and the other side is making principled arguments, it's kind of hard to take the hypocrite's side. But he did push back against Chamberlain. Sadly, we didn't have time to cover every single spicy moment. Highly recommend you watch the full debate. But we'll start with Kent triggering Chamberlain by explaining how the US can restrain the Israelis, God forbid, by restrain the Israelis from escalating this war further, which of course Israel wants to escalate. Let's watch.
It's great that we got the ceasefire. We need to maintain that ceasefire, and we have to actually withhold things from the Israelis, which we can do. The Israelis do have a modern air force, but they rely on us for a lot of the logistics, the refueling, in order to be able to reach into Iran. So we very much are in the driver's seat of what we provide.
Well, that's not true, Joe. That's just obviously false because we didn't help them with refueling.
No, it's 100% true. They can't reach into. They cannot reach into Israel. I've actually been in the military, man. I've been part of these operations.
Then explain how they did the 12-day war without refueling.
We
helped them out. Participating in the offensive operations.
We helped them out a good.
Struck the hell out of
Well, we helped them out a good deal with logistics. They can't sustain operations without us. They wouldn't be able to continue to sustain operations all the way into Iran with conventional military forces in any meaningful way without our support.
Does Will Chamberlain think we're stupid? Does he think we're stupid? Okay, so he points to one thing. Oh, you didn't help the Israelis refuel? Bitch, we're the ones who bombed the nuclear sites on behalf of Israel. That's what we did. Oh, we didn't do enough? We give that damn country tens of billions of dollars just over the last 2 years so they can prosecute these genocides and these land grabs in the Middle East. Oh, it's not enough for precious Israel? Jesus Christ, Matt. Go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, so one quick point here. So it's not just that we do the hardest jobs like destroying the nuclear facilities. Israel assigns the most dangerous jobs to us.
Exactly.
Yeah, because they don't want to, get their precious Israeli citizens hurt. That's what the Americans are for. We're cannon fodder.
By the way, the mere fact that we were even involved in the 12-day war, Israel should be down on their knees, thanking us, worshiping us. Israel was never a threat to the United States. They didn't have nuclear weapons, and they also don't have missiles that have the capacity to hit the United States. Not a threat to the US. We shouldn't have been involved at all. And if Israel is complaining that we didn't help them refuel, they can shove it. But anyway, let's get to the next clip. So Kent triggered Chamberlain again later in this debate by debunking the notion that Iran was gearing up to nuke the entire world. Take a look.
We had a regime inside of Iran, although they were not the best. It's not exactly what we wanted. They had a prohibition on building a nuclear weapon, and they were involved in active negotiations with us. They were closely adhering to a strict escalation ladder. Their proxies were not attacking us. No, that's exactly what happened. They
had
were not
60%
building a
enriched
nuclear
uranium.
weapon.
What do you think they were using that for?
What?
Medical purposes?
If they wanted a bomb, they had decades, long before President Trump ever became the president, to develop a nuclear weapon. There was a prohibition by the Ayatollah, which was a reasonable and calculated approach. They didn't want to become like Libya. They didn't want to become like Saddam.
In fact, I believe that fatwa that was issued by the Ayatollah who has now been assassinated was a mistake. I think it would have been far better if Iran, much like Pakistan, had a deterrent. They believe that 60% enriched uranium would be a latent deterrent, but clearly it was not. And so like Will Chamberlain, I mean, who are you gonna believe here, right? The person who actually served in the Trump administration, served in the military, knows what he's talking about, or Will freaking Chamberlain, who seems to be very devoted to defending Israel no matter what, even including the fact that they have a clandestine nuclear program and are not part of the non-proliferation treaty like other nuclear powers. Back to you, Cenk.
Yeah. So when Hamas puts in their charter that they would like to theoretically, hypothetically destroy Israel, they're like, that is so important. That's the most important thing in the world. If they write something down like that, we have to believe that it is 100% true. Then the Ayatollah issues the most important religious edict in Shia Islam and says, we are not ever going to develop a nuclear weapon. The guy don't believe it. So wait, which one is it? If they write it down and say it, is it true or not true? Oh, conveniently, when it's something that you don't like, oh, it doesn't count. When it's something that you really, really want to emphasize, you find a sentence and go, that's everything, right? These are propaganda tricks. And you think Will Chamberlain doesn't know why they were enriching uranium to 60%? They were doing it for leverage, obviously, right? Like, come on, Will, you don't know that? Okay, of course that he knows that. And guys, this is like really important for you to understand. Why did the Ayatollah issue that fatwa? Because he's not an idiot. He knows that if Iran developed a nuclear weapon, let alone whether they used it, even just having one would have probably gotten Iran nuked. And they don't want to die. They don't want 90 million Iranians to die. But in our racist, bigoted media, they always say like, oh, they're religious zealots and they'll do anything just to murder Jews. Yeah, they're gonna they're gonna let 90 million Iranians get killed just because they're so insane. That's how Muslims are. They're so insane that they're willing to get nuked themselves. No, that's a bunch of lies.
I actually disagree with you on this. Let me ask you something. Is there any threat that North Korea is about to get nuked? Or
No.
Pakistan?
No.
No. Why? Why is that? Is it because they have nukes and it serves as a deterrent?
Well, no, Anna, but there's an important distinction there. They have nukes and they're not neighbors of Israel.
Sure.
If North Korea was a neighbor of Israel, like if they got to 2% enriched uranium, we would have already declared war against them. But since they're not a neighbor of Israel, we let them develop as many nukes as they like.
I don't know. I really think that this whole war with Iran wouldn't even be something we're discussing right now if they actually had a deterrent like that. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Anyway, what I do know though, without a shadow of a doubt, is that the attack on Iran, despite the fact that they went out of their way to prevent war, they went out of their way to engage in peace negotiations, even after the dishonesty displayed by the United States, shows me that you really do need some sort of deterrent. And it shows other countries they need a deterrent, which is why you have Greece, you have Saudi Arabia, you have all these other countries thinking about developing nukes. So this war is actually going to lead to more nuclear proliferation for those who are concerned about nukes. We'll end on this. Chamberlain and Morgan ended up trading blows over Trump's threat to end civilization in Iran. Apparently, Chamberlain, it was okay with Trump's statement. Let's take a look.
When you say America is,
that's the way the world works.
When you say America is benevolent, how does that sit with the President of the United States 2 days ago talking about the imminent destruction of an entire civilization?
Oh, you mean like death to America, death to Israel? right? Like
No,
we've
I'm
dealt
talking
with for
about
30
Donald Trump.
years.
Talking about
Trump
Donald
throws
Trump saying
one
it is.
post out
I'm
and
talking
everybody
about
loses
Donald
their crap
Trump
in the middle of a
I'm talking
negotiation
about
and
Donald
signs
Trump.
a ceasefire within 8 hours.
I'm talking about
Come on.
Donald Trump threatening to annihilate 90 million people in his own words.
McFarland had it right
In
yesterday.
his
You
own
guys all
words
took
on
the
his
bait on
post.
that.
Do you not care about that?
I just see it as negotiating bluster. Trump's been doing this stuff for 40
What's a
years.
threatened genocide?
I mean, that's exactly what the Iranians have been doing to us. They had a clock in the middle of their downtown
So
saying
America
that they were
should
going to
be as
destroy the entire country of Israel.
amoral. America should be amoral, if not as immoral as its enemies. So what you're saying?
We should be sufficiently ruthless to get our negotiated pieces that actually make sense, which we seem to have done here. Apparently, this focused the Iranians' mind and made them realize they should come to the table.
Are you aware that threatening to commit an act of genocide in itself could be presented as a war crime?
I think that would be frivolous.
It is capital, deserves capital punishment if anyone utters something like death to America. But the president of the United States threatening to nuke an entire country and wipe out their civilization in a single night, that's totally okay. Let's defend him as he says things like that. Just so shameful, disgusting.
Yeah, last two things here. Guys like Will never explain to you why they say death to America. They make it seem like, oh, they irrationally hate Americans for no reason. No, they hate us because we're supporting the occupation of the Palestinians, and we have for 58 years. And so it is an enormous injustice to Muslims, and that is why Iran is livid about it. They also hate us because we overthrew their democratically elected government, but they pretend that Muslims are so irrational and full of hate, and that's where it comes from. That's not where it comes from at all. But again, his stunning admissions of hypocrisy are amazing. If they just say death to America, that's the worst thing in the world, and we should declare war against them and kill them. But if Donald Trump says we are going to annihilate every Iranian, no big deal. I mean, how could that be true if you're a person of principle? But he's not a person of principle. He just keeps saying, I'm maniacally biased, and I don't care what Israel does, and Israel's allowed to do anything they want. And their neighbors and opponents and Muslims are never allowed to do anything, including defend themselves. So, I mean, and Will Chamberlain speaks for all of mainstream media and all of our politicians, let's be honest.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.